20% of our body's energy at any given moment in time. For its size and weight, it uses a disproportionate amount of energy. It's an energy hog. And this is not fake or imaginary energy. It's energy in the form of what? Do you know? Yeah, glucose. Your brain primarily runs on sugars. Processing information requires energy. Thinking requires energy. How many of you have had these days where you start the day refreshed, you're energized, you go throughout the day, do nothing really physical, but end of the day completely exhausted? Yeah, because thinking requires energy. But with that said, you cannot lose weight by thinking really hard. Well, theoretically you could, but very few of us, if any of us in this room, will do that. They did a cool study that showed when chess masters played in a tournament against other chess masters in a high-level tournament, they burned as many calories, used as much energy as a marathon runner running a marathon. So when someone says they're mentally tired, mentally fatigued, that's a thing. And when you're mentally tired, mentally fatigued, you don't think very well. You react to the world. You're more likely to go Hulk. And you know you've gone Hulk if you've ever had to say, I wish I hadn't done that. I wish I hadn't said that. I wish I had hit enter on that email. Right? Okay. So now we learn your brain's kind of lazy. Let's apply that and see how it could be hard for our brain and for us, obviously, to encounter new and different things like people and ideas. You have these two environments. New, one you've never been in, and familiar, one you've been in a lot. Of these two environments, all else being equal, which one generally asks you to process more information and thus use more energy? New, yeah, of course. You tend to use much more energy in new environments. What's happening is this. You step into an environment. Your brain automatically collects data about the environment for you, compares it against the existing database and goes, hey, we don't have much information about this environment. We better think about it more. We better analyze it and try to discover the patterns. That requires lots of energy, lots of glucose. But we just learned your brain wants to conserve energy. It's always trying to conserve energy. When it's trying to conserve energy, which environment will it prefer? Prefers the familiar. Again, what's happening is this. You step into an environment, your brain collects data about the environment for you, compares it against the existing database, and in this case it goes, hey, we have much information about this environment. We know the patterns here. We don't need to think about it anymore. Think of these familiar places as your psychological and physical comfort zones. And we love our comfort zones, don't we? That's why we call them comfort zones. And that, which makes it most comfortable, familiarity. Familiarity. So based on what we just learned, the brain wants to conserve energy. It prefers the familiar because that can conserve energy. Let me ask you some questions. Why do you think you tend to hang out with people who are like you? Surround yourselves with people with similar worldviews. Christians with Christians, atheists with atheists, Muslims with Muslims. Fox News folks with Fox News folks, and CNN folks with CNN folks, right? Do you think this might also have an impact on hiring and promotion? Yeah. See, if these are my homies here, people like the idea, they like me, go, I want them around me. Let's promote them, let's hire them. Then they already know how I do things. I don't need to teach them the right way. Because if I hired strangers, I'd have to teach them the right way, which is my way. And that would require too much work on my part. Your brain goes, I'd rather be lazy. Think about this as we talk. Although we live in the year 2022, there's still part of your brain that thinks it's on the Serengeti. Okay, long ago. That makes sense? All right, here we go. I have like 90 minutes of content to get across to you in 45 minutes, so I'm going to talk a lot. I got to skip some things and talk a lot faster. Are you okay to follow along with me talking faster? Okay, here we go. I'll give you two words to describe the human brain, the operation of the human brain. These words are metaphorical, they're not literal. Let's go back to that math problem that many of you got wrong. You start that math problem using what I call your modern brain. If you read Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow, we refer to it as System 2. Your modern brain is your executive center. It's your frontal cortex, the area of the brain that sits behind the eyes. Your modern brain can think about things. Another word for thinking is cognition. Your modern brain can plan, can set goals, and it can do those things because it has this other ability called metacognition. Anyone know what metacognition means? I'll give you some hints. A meta-study is a study of studies. A meta-analysis is an analysis of analyses. If cognition is thinking, what is metacognition? Thinking about thinking. Yeah, you just did well in the GRE. Okay. Metacognition is something that we can do that very few other animals can do. And the ones that can do it cannot do it to the same degree that we can. Basically means this. We can self-reflect. We can be self-aware. And we can do that in the present. We can be aware of the present. But metacognition also allows us to be aware of things in the future, meaning we can conjure up scenarios that have never existed before and evaluate them before they happen. We can live in the past. We can recall situations that we've been in and evaluate them. You follow? We can live in the present, future, and the past. Other animals are basically always living in the present. Okay. Go back to that math problem. You start the math problem using your modern brain. But once your brain thinks it's found a pattern, you move into what I call your ancient brain. And your ancient brain was not designed to think about things. It was designed to quickly react to things without thinking. And it bases reactions on past experiences. It doesn't think about past experiences because it doesn't have metacognitive abilities. So it makes associations. Remember Ivan Pavlov and his dog? Yeah, Pavlov's dog, awkward conditioning. That's basically your ancient brain. Okay? So it uses past experiences to write simple rules. A fancy name for those simple rules is heuristics. Okay? Maybe it's better to do it this way for you. If you encounter situation A, and you do B and C outcome occurs, and you like C outcome, your brain knows that. If that happens over and over again, your brain goes, oh, I found a pattern. And your brain writes you a little line of code that says, if A, then B, hopefully C. Where's the problem lie? The problem lies here. It's when you think you've encountered A, but you actually encountered X. But because you thought you encountered A, you do B. But since now it's X plus B, instead of A plus B, Z outcome occurs, and you don't like Z outcome. Because your ancient brain tries to do things very fast, it leaves out information. It looks for and tries to discover the familiar. It just takes pieces of information. It doesn't take all information. Answer this question for me. How many of every animal did Moses bring onto the ark? Moses brought no animals on the ark. That'd be Noah. So your ancient brain went, oh, I think I know that. I think I know that. Sounds familiar. We don't need to think about it. Let's just answer. Okay? Let me do another one for you. Say this word top out loud with me 10 times. I'll ask a question. You answer right away. Got it? So we'll say it out loud together 10 times. Top. I'll ask. You answer. Everybody participate. If somebody next to you's not participating, just slap them upside the head for me. Okay? I know that's not protocol, but do it anyway. Okay? Here we go. 10 times top, I ask you answer. Ready? Okay, I want to hear you. Top, 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 top. What do you do to green light? What are you supposed to do to green light? And many of you said what? Stop. Exactly. I can make you look stupid all day if I wanted to. Okay. But I don't have all day, so I got 11 minutes left. Oh, okay. So let's key in on your ancient brain. Your ancient brain is trying to identify a threat. I gotta go back.
Thank you for doing that.
The capital city of the ancient brain is this thing called the amygdala. Anyone know what the amygdala is most known for? Fight or flight. Fight or flight, you're right, but there's actually 4 F's. Fight, flight, freeze, and sex. Neuroscience 101 joke. Okay. It's actually how you evolved in procreation. Okay. All right. So your amygdala sits in the background part of your limbic system. She's laughing right there. Okay. Okay, your amygdala sits back in it's hard, your limbic system sits back in the background, and it's always vigilant of threats. It's always on the lookout for threats for you. Taking information in consciously, but also subconsciously. You ever been walking down in an area, maybe a dark alley? You don't know what's wrong, but you feel something's wrong, and your hairs on your arms stand up. That's your amygdala saying, we think something could be wrong here. It operates subliminally, right? Now, your ancient brain is always trying to identify threat. When it comes to people, in its quest to conserve energy, it tries to quickly identify threat by minimizing or by reducing a complex person into one or two variables. A human being, a very complex person, multifactor person, but the ancient brain is trying to reduce that multifactor person to one or two factors. For our purposes here, it tries to reduce it to this: insider versus outsider. In fact, insider, this in-group, out-group issue, that's every diversity issue. Whether you're talking about race, gender, class, what department you work in, what type of degree you have, every quote-unquote inclusion and diversity issue boils down from a brain perspective to, are you part of my tribe or not part of my tribe? Because your brain, in order to make quick decisions about threats and safety, it errs on the side of thinking of the insider, the in-group member, as safe, and the outsider as dangerous. It starts out with a natural positive bias towards the insider and a natural negative bias towards the outsider. It leads to a bias that we call fundamental attribution error. Fundamental attribution error basically says this: even when an insider and an outsider do the same thing, we tend to give different reasons for why they do those things. Okay? Because we start out non-neutrally with the insider and outsider. Fun example. As you heard earlier, I'm a Michigan State Spartan, a proud Michigan State Spartan. Yes. As a proud Michigan State Spartan, I have a green S on my license plate. In fact, if you look at all the cars in our household, there's a green S on the license plate or a Spartan head. It tells everybody that my family, we are loyal citizens of Spartan Nation. We're good people. Other people in my state of Michigan, other very bad people in my state of Michigan, they have a blue M on their license plate. They're University of Michigan Wolverine. And when anybody with a blue M on their plate drives by me and cuts me off, I'll probably say, well, I won't say that. But when anyone with a blue M on their license plate drives me, they cut me off, they veer right in front of me, because that's what those people do. They're genetically encoded to treat other people poorly. They're animals. Wolverines isn't their name, how could they not be, right? But here's the deal: if the person with the green S on their license plate drives by me and cuts me off, I'll probably say, you didn't see me. Notice something: an insider, a Spartan, an outsider, Wolverine cut me off the road. Both of them cut me off the road. I give different reasons for why they do so. Why is the Wolverine cut me off the road? Because they're idiots. That's actually true, though. I know I kid with you a lot, but I'm speaking truth there, right? Why is the Spartan cut me off the road? They didn't see me. All else being equal, even when the insider and outsider do the same thing, I have the tendency, or I should say, my ancient brain has the tendency to give the benefit of the doubt to the insider and judge the outsider much more harshly. Let me give you another example. And then, an outsider's on welfare. Why is the outsider on welfare? They don't work hard if they're lazy, exactly. An insider's on welfare. Why is the insider on welfare? Bad luck, poor economy, COVID, right? Outside forces led them to be that way. But I want to suggest to you again, that's your ancient brain making the quick judgment. In fact, your ancient brain will judge things in less than 0.25 seconds, often faster, without you having to ask it to. Right? What happens if you practice bringing your modern brain online? The thinking brain. Well, what can happen is this. How many of you have heard stories of outsiders? Hear these stories, read about stories. Some of these outsiders work very, very hard in our society and get nowhere. Ever heard stories like that? Yeah. How many of you know insiders who are downright lazy? Yeah, we all do. They come over holiday, they're called relatives. Right? So our modern brain can sift through all that information and go, okay, there are good and bad insiders, and there are good and bad outsiders. Your modern brain can do that, but your ancient brain goes insider good, outsider bad right away. Right? The problem also is this. Your ancient brain operates 70 to 80% of your waking hours for you. When under stress, it pops up to about 90%. Ouch, huh? Oh, Sarah, I might have to go overtime. Can I go overtime? Can I go? A little bit over. I should have asked her. John, my guy there said, don't ask, just do it. Okay, I said, we're at the point where, remember I said earlier, I'm going to show you the neural circuitry for belonging. I'm going to show you that right now. I don't have time to go through all the experiments. I'll just show you this. When you don't feel like you belong, when you're excluded, when you've been rejected by a group, when you've been bullied, two areas in your brain light up. The first area, the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex. The second area, the right ventral prefrontal cortex. These two areas of the brain light up. Guess what also lights up these two areas of the brain? Physical pain. Physical pain. Okay? In these experiments, though, they lit up these pain centers not by slapping people or punching people. They did it by leaving them out of a computer game that the subjects volunteered for in a college experiment. There was no physical interaction. They were just kicked out of a computer game. Researchers labeled this the social pain of rejection, the social pain of exclusion. Being excluded, being rejected is literally painful to the brain. I slap you, those two areas of the brain light up. I humiliate you in a meeting, those two areas of the brain light up. Do you think pain has an impact on your performance? I hope you're shaking yes. In fact, the research would suggest it has a negative 20 to 30% impact on your performance. Again, I don't have time to make the rationale, to show you all the research, but let me just ask you a simple question, especially for the athletes here. Athletes, raise your hand. If you played sports, or even want to be athletes, raise your hand. Okay. How important is an athlete's mental state when they walk into the performance field? Very important, right? It's huge. My son is a pro golfer. Okay. Look for his name, Steve Robbins. Last Friday, he shot a 6 under 65 with a 10-foot birdie on the final hole to make the cut to earn his Korn Ferry Tour card. That's the tour, right? The old PGA. He had to make this putt, right? He tracks his heart rate. He tracks his heart rate with a little wristband. He looked at it afterward, and he posts on Instagram. My average heart rate during the round was 127. My heart rate standing over the 10-foot birdie putt to make the Korn Ferry Tour, 170. Okay. A large part of why he could do it, at least that time, practice. Countless hours of practice. When you are under stress, you go to your natural and practiced tendencies. Because of all his practice, he was able, even with his heart rate at 170, probably sweating a lot, to make the putt, at least this time. If I had to reimagine HR, we need to get people to practice. We can't just send them to workshops, send them to conferences, and just give them information. That's good. But if they don't practice, they'll never acquire the skills that we need them to have to create what the morning keynote is called a caring culture. This is all about, inclusion is all about caring. If you want to simplify it, simplify the work of inclusion, diversity, equity to caring. Are you a caring person? Do you do your best to create a caring culture? Right? Sometimes we overcomplicate the work of inclusion, and when we do that for them, we give people excuses not to do the work. Boil it down to caring, right? And if you notice something, if you pull it from the top, our brain more easily cares for people it knows and is familiar. And we have to be very intentional for caring people we don't know, outsiders. Right? So I want to make the case for all our inclusion and diversity issues boil down to a single root problem: being closed-minded. And we tend to be closed-minded because our brain tries to conserve energy. Whether you're talking about race, gender, class, sexual orientation, whatever inclusion and diversity issue, it goes back to being closed-minded. Let's just make a simple case for it. Would you agree that open-minded people have fewer problems with differences than closed-minded people? Yeah, right? So let's learn how to practice open-mindedness in our end, okay? This is, by the way, an educational session. This is not a training. And the difference between the two is this: would you like your kids to have sex education or sex training? Okay. Okay. This is about information. This is about practice. Makes sense now, right? Okay, so what do we practice? Quickly, how do we practice open-mindedness? The scenario is this: you've encountered a person who's expressed a worldview, a belief, or an idea that's very different than yours. In fact, their belief, their worldview causes you cognitive dissonance. Recognize that in yourself. Use your metacognitive abilities and go, I just got triggered with a negative thought. And then go, let me practice these 3 questions this crazy Asian guy taught me at a Gartner conference. Okay, first question is, what journey did they walk? What experiences did they have that led them to certain conclusions about the world that are very different than yours? Second question, this is a practice in external curiosity. And by the way, curiosity is the great attribute of an open-minded person. Okay? Second question, very similar. What journey did I walk? What experiences did I have that led me to certain conclusions about the world that are very different than theirs? A practice in internal curiosity or introspection. And I find that very few of us take the time to regular introspection and ask ourselves, why do I believe the things that I believe? Right? The third and final question presupposes we live in a shades of gray world. A shades of gray world is one in which you cannot definitively prove that you were right and they are wrong. Shades of gray world is one in which you can have multiple valid perspectives. In such a shades of gray world, ask yourself this final question: why am I so certain that I am right and they are wrong if I can't prove it? Why am I so certain that they are wrong and I'm right if there could be multiple valid perspectives here? As a person becomes certain about something, they close the door to new information, and it usually requires new information for them to see a different way. As certainty increases, curiosity decreases. There's an inverse relationship between the two. Think about it this way: certainty is the enemy of curiosity. But you know whose curiosity's brother and cousin is? Growth-minded people, continuous learners. You don't want to shut off certainty in people. Curiosity in people. You want to have them be able to exist in a state of uncertainty but still operate well. That's what we have to practice for. That's what my son practiced for, to be able to sink the 10-foot putt. Does that make sense? So, let me make an illustration for why being open-minded is so important. What's 4 plus 4? 8, yeah. Maybe you go, wait a second here. No, that's true. 4 plus 4 says no second guess yourself. But, what if I told you that 4 plus 4 was 13? What is your quick, less than 0.25 second ancient brain reaction to 4 plus 4 is 13? Wrong.